About a decade ago, I owned a business where I processed old and expired film, and by old, I mean pretty old. A lot of these, as you can see, the expiration date on the film itself is 1952. All of these rolls have been exposed, and they're just waiting to be developed. So I haven't been doing that business in 5 or 6 years, but still, anytime I see an old exposed roll of film, I have to buy it. Estate sale, online, other random places, old cameras that still have film, anything like that, I go ahead and pick it up. So here's a small sampling of what I currently have sitting and waiting to be developed. Most of these I've had for at least 10 years. Go ahead and give this a shot on this channel and see how it goes over. See if there's any interest from other people. During the time I had the business, I developed some rather elaborate charts as far as developing times, methods, chemicals, including some of my own creations in order to develop certain types of film. A lot of it involved Ilford DDX, stop bath fixer, and then photo flow to clean up the actual negative. But instead of focusing on specifics for specific types of film, what I'm going to do for this video, and probably most of the other videos, is focus on a very simple method. Use photo flow, rapid fixer, and diafine. Diafine is an interesting type of developer. It's a compensating developer. It's a two-part. You actually run it through part A. Make sure that as much of part A is off of the film as possible. Switch to part B. And then go to your regular fixer and your photo flow to clean the negative off. What's different about diafine is it doesn't really matter how long you leave the film in the developer. With something like the DDX, you have very specific times, and depends on the temperature. The temperature has to be exactly right, or within at least a couple of degrees, and the time, 5 seconds, can make a difference on how well the negatives develop. It's great if you know how long the film has been out, where it's been, was it actually kept in a house with air conditioning, was it stuck in an attic, out in the shed, was it in somebody's barn, that type of thing. All is very important for determining the time to actually develop. So we're not going to use this since we don't know about the film. We're going to stick with this good stuff, diafine. If you've never done it before, this is what you need. It's a daylight developing tank. For the older film sizes, you basically have to find an old developing tank. This one will handle 110, 35 millimeter, which includes 126 format film. This is 120. I'm sorry, this is 127. And this is 120, 620, 116, 616, and at least one other format that I can't think of while I'm recording this video. There's one other size of film that pops up every once in a while, and it's 118. And this guy is huge. Requires a special tank. They're very difficult to find, and I do happen to have a couple of those, so we'll develop these at a later date. So what do you do with this? Well, you set it for the size of the film. You take the film and the developing tank, all the parts of the developing tank, and put it into a daylight bag or go into a dark room. Completely, totally dark. So it's a good idea to use a daylight bag. You take the film off the spool, you slip it into the little slots, and you crank this, and it winds around onto the spool. You get the film onto the spool, drop it into the tank, close the tank, and then you can add and swap your chemicals without any light getting into the film, because light can't bend corners. Very simple device, works great. So let's go ahead and develop a roll. So I went with a roll of 620, and that's been loaded in here. So let's go ahead and begin. Here's part A of the diafine that's been mixed. This stuff is at least a year old, but it's only had one roll of film processed through it, and it generally doesn't expire based on just age and sitting around. It has been kept in a dark place since there was no dark bottle for this one. It generally only expires with being used. Part A can last pretty much forever, although I would replace it periodically. Part B, you can actually get a solution that revives this solution. The only reason Part B starts expiring is because Part A gets into Part B during the process. So let's go with Part A. Go ahead and shake it up since it's been sitting around for quite a while. Going to pour that in. Okay. And start the timer. It's supposed to be 5 seconds of agitation to begin with, and then 5 seconds of agitation every minute. I tend to agitate significantly more than that. So we'll let that sit there, and when we pass a minute, alright, we're at 1 minute. And I tend to do inversion agitations, a little shake, and then a thump. And that's to try and release any air bubbles that might be stuck to the film. Generally the thump, thud, whatever you want to call it, only needs to be done the first time since the film would be dry at that point. But it doesn't hurt anything to do it each time. Okay, we're at the 2-minute mark. And when we reach the 3-minute, we'll go ahead and pour it out and go on to the next. Okay, 3 minutes, pull that off, pour this back in. And try to get as much as possible out. The more you get out, the less you contaminate for the next step. Okay. So this is part B of Dye-Fine. I'll go ahead and pour that in. Start the clock. All right, 1 minute. All right, 2 minutes. Okay, we're at 3 minutes. I'll go ahead and pour this out. And that tank really is leaky. I know the seals didn't look that good. There shouldn't be any light exposure. It should strictly be liquid. Anyway, We rinse for at least 30 seconds. Alright, we're at a minute or so. Go ahead and pour that out. And it looks like that sink's decided to become slow again. Alright, next is fixer. It's marked on there somewhere. We'll pour that in. Now the fixer I mixed fresh this morning, so it should be good. Stop that. And let that sit. And we're at 4 minutes. So go ahead and pour that out. I'm going to carry this into another sink since this one's running slow, just to make the washout run a little better. The water's been running for a while. I finally moved the camera over here. Really need to make sure you rinse for about 5 minutes. Occasionally dumping it. So I've got maybe a minute, minute and a half left. Since it's already been developed and fixed, there's no reason why you can't take the lid off, which is usually what I do at about the 2.5, 3 minute mark out of the 5. So let's go ahead and take that off. Got a little crinkle there when I was loading it. I can distinctly see divisions between the frames, so it did develop. How well it developed, we will see once this is finished. Okay, so that should be long enough. I'm going to go ahead and turn that off, dump the water. Pour the photo flow in. This is kind of like a dilute soap solution. It's the easiest way to explain it. It looks like I didn't make up quite enough to cover the film. So I'll do a little agitation. Well, now I have even less. Have to make up more for the next roll. Okay, pour that out. And we have a finished roll. Doesn't look like much from here. Not even sure on the video if you can see the frame division line. It's right there. So go ahead and start pulling this off. And we have photos. Let me move this out of the way a little. See if we can't see these as I'm pulling them off. Let me move the camera a little. There we go. There's. So it looks like portraits, which is generally what you find on the older rolls. Someone's car. And there were only like 4 frames. The rest of it was never exposed by the look of it. And since those don't have images, I'll go ahead and pull this down. And then I'm taking a squeegee that really should be wet. There we go. And running the squeegee down the film to get rid of the excess photo flow. And then I'll just hang this up to dry. If you recognize someone in these pictures, be sure to have them contact me so that I can return the negatives to the rightful owner. And if you have any film you'd like to see developed, just send me a message.